1,000 students each year, or nearly 4,000 students at any given time. Now, there is also a smaller DLI school in Washington, D.C. that specializes in 65 less commonly taught languages, as well as an English training center at the Air Force Base in Texas. But most of the action takes place in California. Now, to attend, you must be a member of the armed forces or be sponsored by a government agency. So, to all of you language dreamers out there, sorry, it probably ain't gonna happen. So who makes it to the DLI? Well, let's start with federal employees. That's FBI, DEA, Border Patrol, Coast Guard, and so on. Linguists in these government agencies do intelligence jobs, and they're mainly jobs that are closer to home, investigating drug trafficking, for example. If you watch TV, I'm sure you will have at least some idea of what these guys do. But the military also trains interpreters that it sends all over the world, and these linguists work to translate highly classified documents and connect with troops and allied forces. And of course, on the front line, this ability to communicate can be crucial, and that's where the armed forces come in. Soldiers who may have been deployed to Afghanistan, for example, would have got an intense language training at the DLI with native Afghan instructors.
Our students initially are Department of Defense service members. They come from all the different branches of the military. As volunteer citizens, a lot of them have recently come from basic training. As military members, they come from throughout the United States, very diverse. We have young service members, but we've also got careerists who return back for advanced language training, as well as officers for advanced training.
By the way, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Ollie Richards, and this channel is all about helping you learn a new language and explore the world through the power of story. Now, do you want to see inside the school? Well, I certainly do.
Открыть интернет-магазин с доходом от 150 тысяч в месяц может каждый. Не верите? А если вам скажут это...
And this channel is all about helping you learn a new language and explore the world through the power of story. Now, do you want to see inside the school? Well, I certainly do. For 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, young men and women in uniform are hard at work in very intensive language classes. And when they knock off, at the end of the day, they still need to get through 2 or 3 hours of homework and somehow also fit in an hour or 2 of study time. But that's not all. This is the military after all, and soldiers have PT schedules and other duties. Now, as I'm sure you can guess, the school has a reputation for excellence. After all, they've been successfully training soldiers in foreign languages since 1941.
Я только что окончил передовицу. Что же мне? Да, все тоже. Ты знаешь, что такое правда? Не известие. В известиях нет правды, да?
So what languages can soldiers learn? Well, because it's the Defence Force, the list is very specific. 17 languages and several dialects of those languages taught. And depending on the difficulty of the language, the courses can last anything from 26 to 64 weeks. And I'll tell you which languages take how long in just a second. I spoke to Elle, whose target language was Korean.
Language program itself is 63 weeks long. And so in that time frame, we cover about 3 years of college level language. So by the time we're done in our 63 weeks, then we're pretty fluent in a lot of different areas.
And it moves by really fast at great intensity. There's a saying among students that sums up the experience: drinking from a fire hose. And perhaps unlike a lot of other language courses, the cultural aspect of the language is taken very, very seriously.
We teach language to a very high proficiency level, near native proficiency. And we teach it in a very short period of time. It's a very intense class, very difficult academically. And part of that is to learn about the culture, because you really can't operate at high levels in a language unless you understand the culture. How can you understand the humor? Read between the lines, understand current political affairs. What are some of the tensions and challenges in that region politically, geopolitically?
It's essential to know all these things. So, first things first, if you've been accepted into the military and hope to be a linguist, or if your job requires you to be a linguist, you go to the DLI. You'll be between the ages of 17 and 35, and most likely from the Army. But you may also be from the Navy, Marine Corps, or Air Force. You may perhaps also be a green beret sent here from Fort Bragg for additional language training. But before you get anywhere near the DLI, you first have to take a proficiency test, and it's called the DLAB, Defense Language Aptitude Battery. If you pass, you will be put in a language category based on how well you did. It could be an easier category like French, or a more difficult category like Russian. Now this bit is interesting. Even if you already know a language, or you've studied it to a decent level before, or even you're fluent in a second language, there's no guarantee that you'll pass the Dlab test. Why? Because the test itself doesn't test your ability in a specific language, it tests your brain's ability to learn a new language on the fly. And it's very clever. The test is based on a made-up language. Well, at least you can't cheat. Be clever. The test is based on a made-up language. Well, at least you can't cheat.
Talking it over with my recruiter at the time, I took a second battery of tests called the Dlab, which is the Defense Language Aptitude Battery, and that tests your ability to learn languages. So it's all made up language type things that they're asking questions about, and they're looking for pattern recognition and whether you can work out grammar structures and word recognition and that sort of thing. And if you have a high enough score in that test, then you qualify for the linguist job.
Interesting, right? The logic of this will become clearer as you watch the rest of the video. And as I mentioned earlier, you can take this entrance test too, even as a civilian. I'll show you how you can do that later. And the other thing that civilians can do is subscribe to this channel. It's quite a bit easier than the entrance exam. Just got to click one button.
And remember why you're here, why you're learning a language. You're in the military. You're not here to just pass, get your certificate and your diploma. One day, someone's going to be relying on you and the intelligence you provide to shape their operations.
So you pass the entry test. You're in. What happens next? Well, it's time you met our second soldier, Jack. Not his real name, and he has to remain anonymous for this video.
You basically sign up for some kind of language-related job. It varies a little bit branch to branch. You go through your initial basic training, and then, while you're in basic training, they give you a dream sheet. And they say, these are all the languages currently being taught. Rate your top 6.
And you don't find out what language you get until the end of basic training. Sometime in the middle, you fill out some paperwork, you explain your language history, what languages you are interested in learning, and they look at those, and then they look at what the Air Force needs, and they assign you.
So hopefully you'll be given one of your top 3 choices, but just like the missionaries in Utah, there is no guarantee that you'll get the language that you want. You'll be assigned the language based on 2 things: how well you did on your test and what the Army's current needs are. And those needs obviously change with world events, so they always have to be looked at a few years ahead. Remember, this is not about you. Active service members in particular, they don't get to choose. Jack was hoping to get Russian, but he was actually assigned Farsi. But in a lucky break, he actually ended up suffering a delay, and he ended up getting on the Russian program after all. How about Elle? Did she get what she wanted?
Yes, actually. Before joining, I had discovered Korean music, and I had really fallen in love with the sound of the language and everything. And so that was on the top of my list. And I was just lucky enough that they needed a Korean linguist, and so that's what I was assigned to.
Nice one, Elle. Now, here are those language categories from earlier. You'll see here how more familiar languages like French and Spanish after 36 weeks in length, while these category 4 languages like Arabic or Chinese take the whole 64 weeks, almost double the study time. I've got to tell you, 64 weeks is intense. I've learned 8 languages, but the longest I've ever done an intensive language project for was 3 months, which I'll link to up here. And I have to say, I was ready to stop after 3 months, and it was nowhere near as intensive as what these guys do, as you'll find out in just a minute. Now, remember, most students arrive with only minimal capabilities in their target language, but that changes very fast indeed.
DLI is an extremely intensive program. And a lot of the young people coming through here, in fact, sometimes even experienced service members, careerists who come through here for language training, will often say it's the hardest thing they've done in the military or as a civilian before they joined the military.
For up to a year and a half, the students at the DLI eat, sleep, and breathe their chosen language.
And make no mistake, you can get kicked off the course.
Откуда я столько времени там это все? Ну, да, это тоже как бы, да. Не, ну все можно найти, резон, все, как бы он есть, как бы все понятно, да. Я имею в виду, что ты, типа, это самое. То есть ты, ну что меняешь ты это? ничего не надо, что ли, по жизни? Не хочешь быть каким-то особенным, что ли? Не знаю, да, ну я понял, ну наоборот, да, ничего не хочешь, да. Ну смотри сам. Что такое, а?